good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to see a number of individuals joining us from around the country. We're going to be talking about the stronger mind, stronger body, and how martial arts has helped us with our mental health and well-being. There's a variety of fantastic instructors who are going to be on this panel, and you have an opportunity to ask questions, and I'll be asking questions of the panel as well. So don't be shy. Either you want to ask questions throughout the meeting or at the end, we don't mind. You can put messages in the chat and we'll be sharing the video once it's recorded on YouTube. You get access to the link. So we're just going to give the opportunity to individuals to introduce themselves briefly. We did it earlier as a group, but we haven't actually met each other physically, all of us. So starting from my screen, Les, can you just quickly introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Les. I'm a founder of Karate for Mental Health. Committed a few books, working with mental health charities around. My main style is karate, wrestling, and recently started to do BJJ as well.
Fantastic, thank you. Jessica?
So I started my Krav Maga journey, if you want to call it that, when I was 43. I'm 52 now, so I'm coming into my 10th year, sorry. So yeah, I started off being a student. Never done anything like that before in my life. And then I loved it that much, kept on doing it. Realized I would like to teach it, so I became an instructor in February 2021 and opened up Amazonia Krav Maga, a school of self-protection, in July 2021. And yeah, had lots of adventures and mischief and merriment since.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jessica. Stuart.
Evening, everybody. Hope you're all well. So my name's Stuart Wade. I am a Taekwondo and kickboxing exponent of over 30 years now, which still sounds insane to me because since I'm only 21, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been training in martial arts the majority of my life, and it's given me so much personally as well as success-wise in terms of competition, but also the mental health benefits. And I'm sure we're going to get into all of that this evening, but it's great to be with you all.
Thanks, Stuart. Claire Carter.
Hi, I'm Claire. I have trained in Japanese Jiu-Jitsu for about 23 years. I run the Newcastle City Club in Newcastle, along with Jonathan Thompson. I've just recently started BJJ. I've been doing that for about 2 years, and then I've managed to somehow get my blue belt in that as well. I've done a little bit of judo at one point. Didn't get very far with that though, because I had my 2 children, and then unfortunately never went back to that, but I've always stuck at the jiu-jitsu.
Hello, I'm Philippa. My first martial art was kickboxing. Then I trained as an ABA boxing coach. Then I found Muay Thai, which I love because you get to use your knees and elbows. Then I trained up as a combat survival tactics instructor, which is a mixture of Krav Maga, Wing Chun, and Thai boxing. And I now run an organisation called Physical Empowerment, working with women after domestic abuse, rape, and sexual violence, using those martial arts and self-defense tools as a trauma rehabilitation tool, essentially.
Thank you. Nick.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Nick. I've been practicing Aikido for over 36 years. Began when I was a teenager and did different styles of Aikido. Since 1995, it's been Iwama Aikido ever since. I have a club teaching in London, North London, the back of Brent Cross, and a club called Aspire Aikido London. And also I can reveal for the past few years, I've also been practicing aside Shotokan Karate. I find it very interesting. It really complements with my study with Aikido. And essentially the reason why I started martial art when I was a teenager is I have a hearing disability. I have a profound hearing loss. And when I was a teenager, I felt martial art could help me to become a little bit stronger. initially physically, but I realized it was much deeper. It was more bringing that mental strength, things that I thought I couldn't do. And then I became more confident, more empowered. And the things that I felt, actually, you know what, person that's stopping me is my inner self. It's a lack of confidence. And then when you do the martial art, you surpass yourself and you realize, wow, I didn't think I was able to do it, and I've done it. And then that boosts your confidence and it pushes you to do things, you know, I can do it, you believe in yourself more, and so on.
Thank you, Nick. We'll go into that in a bit more detail. And Craig Tetley.
Hi, yeah, my name's Craig Tetley. I'm a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt. I started martial arts when I was about 19. I think I started in Muay Thai to begin with. Didn't really like the kind of kicking aspect of the art. I kind of found a boxing club, trained in boxing for quite a long time. I then started working as a doorman. I think self-defense was the main reason why I got into martial arts. And needed a little bit of grappling while around the doors. So I worked as a dom. So I started in judo, got a brown belt in judo, and then I decided that I wanted to make a kind of an achievement and start to teach jiu-jitsu as a living. So I moved down to Birmingham for 5 years to train with Braulio Estima as a part of the Gracie Barra affiliation. After about I think I stayed down there for about 5 years. I moved back to Bradford, opened up a Gracie Barra club, and had that for about 10 or 12 years. And then we recently moved over to Dream Art. So now we're Dream Art Bradford. And yeah, that's about it. I'm also a oxygen advantage coach. I've started doing that because the benefits of controlling the breath, the nervous system, and all that type of stuff. I'm also a self-defense instructor under Jeff Thompson and the British self-defense organisation.
Fantastic, thank you. So as you can hear from our instructors, they've got a varied background, a variety of different martial arts. I think most of us here on this call are either addicted to martial arts, and if you don't already know me, my name is Rad Soren. I've been doing traditional Japanese Jiu-Jitsu under the Jiu-Jitsu Foundation for 40 years. For the last 15 years as well, I'm a black belt in Aikido, and I've done other martial arts in terms of Wing Chun, traditional European martial arts as well, HEMA. And most recently, the last couple of years, my instructor is Craig Tetley in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So I'm still working my way up to the next black belt. And my original instructor is here as well, George Nicola. So he's still in the Manchester area. Anyway, without any further ado, we're going to start off with Stuart because he's going to be. I've got someone handing up. Keith, you got a hand up there, go on.
Yeah, just introduce myself. Keith Lebian. Started karate in the late 60s, judo, wrestling, boxing, all of that. Got downgrades in them all, jiu-jitsu, etc. Currently England boxing coach in Del Boy's Empire of Peckham. And I've done a lot with mentoring young people in the city schools as an add-on. I've also, for 20 odd years, on and off, as an assistant instructor teaching use of force for a major government department. So teaching the legal thing, use of force, all them sort of issues that crop up or do crop up if people end up in court. And yeah. So I've had a bit. My focus has been more teenagers, and especially with England boxing, to keep them, keep them in boxing and to keep them slightly on the straight and narrow, because there's a lot of distractions in places like Peckham and Brixton where I grew up. So it's quite good, really.
Brilliant. Well, thank you, Keith. So there may be other martial artists that want to introduce themselves as well. If you want to do that later on, that's great. We're just going to ask Stuart a few questions now. So Stuart, so you're into kickboxing and Taekwondo, and you also all these instructors that are on the panel are featured in the book Black Belt Mindset for Life and Business. So tell me how important mindset is, because you're a mindset coach as well, and the importance of martial arts to you in terms of your stronger mind and stronger body?
Thank you, Raj. So mindset really is the foundation of everything in my humble opinion. And I didn't know it at the time when I first started out training. I began when I was 6 years old, and it was mainly to try and emulate Bruce Lee and learn how to punch and kick and get my next belt and try and win a few trophies along the way. That was the goal. But I didn't realize at the time that I was being developed in terms of my mental strength and resilience until I failed my black belt the first time. And I tell this story in the book, but just to give a brief summary, I had been told by my instructors beforehand that I would walk it. And I was 8 years old at the time, just before my 9th birthday. And to give a bit of context, a number of students that I had trained with from very early on went through double grades, which I never really agreed with personally, but you know, I wasn't on the grading panel. But so a number of students that I trained with skipped the tags on the belt and they went straight to the next belt through their gradings and whatnot. And we had a number of students that were representing Great Britain. I wasn't at that time, but a number of them were. My first instructor represented Great Britain in the Olympics in Barcelona. The master instructor of the club was the Great Britain coach at the time. So we had a lot of high level tuition, but also high level students. And so coming up to my first black belt grading, I was told by the instructors that I would walk it. And I don't recall that making me complacent at all. It was just a bit of a confidence boost for me at the time. And 50 or so students went down from Doncaster, where I'm from, to Stevenage for the big black belt grading that was probably in the region of 250, 300 students from across the country. And the panel of Korean masters and grandmasters were taking no prisoners that day. And there were only 3 students from the whole of Doncaster that went down on the bus that actually passed. And it absolutely devastated me at the time. I still remember the pain at not even getting told that I'd failed, just my name being skipped when they read out who passed. And upon getting home and processing it, I then made a vow to never fail a grading again. And I don't know where that came from. I don't recall it being something that was imparted to me from peers or parents or instructors or anybody else. It was just some kind of fire that was within me, the seeds of that resilience that the martial arts training had taught me. And I've been very fortunate to never fail a grading ever since. And I also took that mindset into competition. And when I was about 16 or 17, I'd been representing Great Britain for 3 or 4 years at that point. And I started really focusing on the mindset side of things and developing a visualization practice. And I found that that really just got me into a flow state to essentially get me to perform my best out there in competition. Now, the results didn't always go my way, but I always felt that I gave the best possible performance that I could. And in a roundabout way, all of these little incidences and then my studies at university and some other encounters on the way with influential people led me to the work that I do now as a clinical hypnotherapist and high performance mind coach. So martial arts for me, it set me on the path to my business and living the life that I live now. And I'm very grateful for it.
So
Interesting.
you understated how successful you've been. So how many times you've been, is it national, international champion?
I won 4 world championships
Absolutely.
and 3 Europeans and 20 British.
Awesome. Well, that's a
Wow.
heck of an achievement. So congratulations. And you have to have a strong mindset to do that. And definitely read his story in the book. I'm going to go over to Claire now because she's going to have a different perspective and being a mother as well. So tell us a bit about your situation and how martial arts has helped you, Claire.
So I started martial arts at university and happened to meet my husband through jiu-jitsu, and we have 2 lovely children. Unfortunately, during the birth, it didn't go as planned. I ended up with an emergency C-section. As part of that, basically, I had to be very careful coming back to training. Essentially, my stomach muscles hadn't knitted back together. I found it very difficult even to do a backwards roll. I essentially had to reteach myself something that you get to do in your very first session. I couldn't physically do it. My core was non-existent. Pieced myself back together and then fell pregnant again. So then same situation, C-section, and then a very kind of slow and sure build up. But if martial arts teach anything, it's patience as well as resilience, and having that mindset to think I'm not there now, but I will be, and having that patience to kind of work through the difficulties that you're having, and just taking those small wins, and bit by bit I could feel myself getting stronger, getting better. I remember going back after our second, he did not take a bottle. He would not settle for my husband. So there were many sessions where I wasn't back to full training, but I went back about 6 weeks after, just because we would run a split mat because we had juniors on the mat as well. So I would be kind of supervising the juniors whilst the other instructor was training and teaching the senior grades. And I would get a phone call and my phone would go and it would be like, can you come home? So I would essentially get 45 minutes at a time until like our second son got a bit older. And then I kind of decided that I did want to go for my second Dan. One of the big turning points for that was, unfortunately, my instructor who taught me from being a novice, who passed away unexpectedly. And it was kind of that realization of, life's very short. You don't know what's going to get thrown at you. So it was a case of, I would like to go for my second Dan. I'm going to do it now. And I remember my husband going, do you not want to take a longer run up? And then I went, no. Why would I? Like, I had that in my head, and I had that goal of I want to go next summer for my grading, and then I pushed myself through that. Managed the Great North Run the year after giving birth, and then just continued that momentum. And then I've kind of continued going, and I've got kind of like big dreams of going for my fourth Dan at some point, hopefully in the next couple of years or so.
Thank you, Claire. You've obviously had a number of different challenges there. With physical health, getting through pregnancy, cesarean section, still doing the North Run. Very sad loss of a instructor that we both know, and the loss of anyone is always very tough for families, and using martial arts as a way of getting through that is. So I'm going to go to Les, then go to Jessica and Philip after that, then to Nick and Craig. So Les, you've been in karate world for some time, and you've created a charity as well, and you've written a book as well. Just tell us about what has helped you.
So it's not a charity; it's a CIC company, so the community interest company. It's kind of not as complicated as charity, but yes. So I suffered with social anxiety to a degree that I wouldn't go to shop. I was avoiding school since I'm not very well educated, because I've been doing everything else except being in school. Then I found out karate. One of the friends dragged me to karate, and I kind of changed my life, as I've always been afraid of being judged. Now I am teaching internationally karate, mental health, and kind of helping people to go through the rough patches in their life. I work a lot with the people with disabilities. I'm working for different charities, helping people to recover with appropriate therapy through the martial arts, and working a lot with our local council, doing exercise groups for wide ranges. As you said, I wrote a book, actually a few books about mental health and karate and how it's helping people. Unfortunately, there is not much studies and scientific literature about it. So it's mostly the anecdotal evidence. So we got a book full of interviews with people who train with me and how they felt impacted after the training over 5 years. 5 years. And so that's pretty much what I do. And yeah, the karate helped me a lot to kind of change my mindset. As Stuart was saying, I'm haven't been as successful as Stuart in a competition in karate because I lacked of the mindset. I've been more worried about being judged and do something stupid and being laughed at than focusing on a sporting achievement. That changed around my 40th birthday when I done few competition and won everything, because the mindset was that's what we came here to do, instead of worrying what people gonna say about it and stuff like that. So for me, the karate is a really good tool for improving the self worth and boosting the confidence, because you can see through the belts, you're looking back and you see the clear progression, which overall spills to your whole life. And instead of hiding from the challenges, you go forward and overcome those obstacles. And then when you look back, you can see that, you know, it was worth it.
Fantastic. You've done some wonderful work with your CIC, and you're working with local councils as well. I think they're funding some courses. So that's great news. Sorry, is someone supposed to, or someone asking a question then, just in case? Jessica, so I think you're on mute.
Hello. Hi.
So yeah, so you've got a different journey, Philippa, in terms of how martial arts has helped you, because you in your introduction you said you started martial arts a bit later than others, but that's great, and you know,
okay,
it's starting to make an impact. So tell us about it.
Okay, so what I do isn't martial arts, so there's that. What I have trained in and teach is Krav Maga. And those of you who are on here will know all about Krav Maga, I'm sure. It's not, there's no honor in it. There's no uniform. There's no structure. Well, there's a structure. There's no rules. There's no manners. And it's just fairly brutal, and it basically does what you need to do to get you home safe. It can't be put in the same category as martial arts. Whether I'm being a real controversial person by saying that, it is what it is. But it can't be, because martial arts, I've got two sons who are black belts in karate. I've been the karate mum, doing the karate run twice a week, every week for 11 years. They're both black belts, and they're both now assistant instructors within their karate schools. So going from being 7 and 5 years old to young men who now teach what they've learned is a huge, you know, it's a massive achievement. I'm so proud of that. But what I do is not a martial art, because if you come at something, if you come at a violent situation, I mean, God forbid, if you're ever faced with a violent situation, violence isn't polite, it's not prescribed, it's not orderly, it doesn't ask permission, it's chaotic, it's ugly, it's spontaneous, it's you can't match it with martial arts, because if you're faced in a violent confrontation, God forbid, and you are a black belt, 8th Dan, all bells, all singing, all dancing karate expert sensei, and you're faced with somebody who has no respect for any of that. They're not coming from you. They're not coming from a level playing field. They're not going to stand in an opposite corner of the mat and bow and, you know, look to score ippons and, you know, wear a red belt while you wear a blue belt while you're competing. None of that applies in a violent situation. So you're coming at it from a martial artist point of view, you know, that is full of honor and discipline and integrity and all of the lovely stuff that comes with a martial art, any martial art, from a sporting mentality, a competition mentality, a point scoring mentality. You're hoping that's going to be enough when you're faced with a plethora of stuff that you did not see coming. And unfortunately, whoever they is, have got an edge on it. They've got an angle in it because they've got no respect for any of that. So they're not coming with rules, so they'll just come at you. I don't know whether that's a controversial point or not. I don't know. But
Yeah, I mean,
it's
I
my point of
suppose
view.
yeah, I mean, martial arts and combat, no rules is like the old jiu-jitsu had no rules as well.
I also don't refer to myself as self-defense. I refer to what I do as self-protection, because if
Mm.
you have to defend yourself, then you're already under attack, and that means that something has gone very wrong in your story for you to be taking part at that point in your story. If you're under attack, something's gone very wrong. Self-protection is a 360-degree holistic point of view where you're looking to protect yourself, your environment, your belongings, your life, your liberty, your dependence. It's self-protection is everything. It's everything. It's, can you negate it? Can you avoid it? It's everything. It's a whole sphere. It's not just self-defense.
So
So
how has Krav Maga helped you in this journey then in life?
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't. If you'd have said to me 10 years ago, Raj, right, Jess, this is what you're going to be doing in 10 years' time, I'd have gone, no, not so much. Here we are. But how my journey started was like I said, I was a karate mum and all the rest of it. And very good friend of mine had just left an incredibly abusive, controlling, and coercive relationship. I mean, he left her. It was the best thing he did for her, actually. And he left her, but he left her in a mess. He left her with 3 children, one of which was severely autistic. One and she ended up being moving to this very remote area to try and get away from him. Anyway, he found her, and there was a restraining order against him and her, but there wasn't one against him and me. Now, bearing in mind when she left, when he left her, he didn't bank on her having a friend like me, which is like, pick yourself up, come on, shoulder to shoulder, let's do this. We've got this. Come on, we can do this. And so we built her up bit by bit, day by day. Anyway, she was working this one night, and she was working nights, and she said to me, "Look, Jess, can you look after the kids for me tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem, sure." So I agreed to go and babysit the kids, and it was an all-nighter. So my husband at the time was looking after our 2 boys. I went up there, and I could hear one of her children on the phone to their father, and they were forbidden to speak to him. They wasn't part of the thing. And I just said, who are you on the phone to, darling? And she said, "Oh, just telling Daddy who was looking after us tonight." And I was like, "Okay." And what did you tell him? "Oh, I told him it was you." I was like, "Yay, okay, wow." Right. So I rung my friend at work and I said, "Look, we have a problem here because now X knows I'm here and what she'll do." And she absolutely freaked out. She panicked. She was so terrified. She went, "Oh my God, Jess, I'm so sorry. Okay, get all the kids with you. Don't leave them out of your sight. Bolt the cellar door, double block the kitchen door, have the police on speed dial, do this, and and I'm so, so sorry." And I was like, "Oh my God." Didn't really sign up for this. I thought a bit of babysitting. I was just going to watch Netflix and hit the biscuit barrel. I didn't really think this was going to be happening. Anyway, he didn't come up that night, but what it did do, and it gathered the kids around me, and I stayed awake all night. I was just like a bloody long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. It was horrible. But what it did do in the morning was make me I was furious. I thought, God, my friend has had 17 years of feeling like this. I've had one night, one night. And I thought, no, I'm sorry. No, that's not acceptable. I'm not allowing that miscreant of a backed up drain have that much effect on me. I'm not having it. So I thought I need to do something about this because I'm a therapist as well. So I'm used to carrying a treatment bag and a bag of towels and a treatment couch and all the rest of it. So I'm was fairly strong for a woman. But there's no point having all that strength and not knowing what to do with it. So anyway, a week later, just so it happens, I saw a sign in a local gym and it just said, learn Krav Maga, fear no man. Bit of a crappy strap line, but there you go. Build self-confidence, don't fear anybody else ever again, blah blah blah. I thought, right, I'm gonna have a bit of that. That looks like it's for me. So I went along to my first Krav Maga lesson, and that was nearly 10 years ago. And I got in there and I loved it. I was actually, I don't know, just going off on a tangent, which isn't like me at all. If anyone's seen the film Legally Blonde, with Reese Witherspoon in it, and the first day she goes to law school, I was like that person. I was like her. I was like there. I had my shades on. I had my pink glittery bag, and I had my big latte from Starbucks. And I went toddling into this room, and I went, "Hi, I've come for Krav Maga." And this big silverback gorilla of a guy come thumping over to me, and he went, "Yeah." I went, "Oh, hello. Yes, I've come for Krav Maga." And he went, "Right, put your coffee down, put those mitts on. That's who you're sparring with." And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 no. You don't seem to understand. No, no. I've just come to have a look for tonight, just to see if it fits and blah, blah, blah." And he was like, "Well, you're here now.
In the deep
Put your coffee
end.
down, put your mitts on. That's who you're sparring with." And that was it. I was just like hooked. And that was nearly 10 years ago. And the rest is, as they say, history. That was in a nutshell, by the way.
Thank you, Jessica. So I'm going over to Philippa. So you're in an organisation as well. You do a lot of work, community as well, isn't it? So tell us a bit about your journey and how it's helped you.
Well, so I started off. I mean, obviously, I teach largely based on Krav Maga now, and I agree with what Jess just said about self-defense and martial arts. But my point, I mean, from my point of view, I wouldn't have. I had quite an abusive history in my teens with a not very nice partner that used to be very physically abusive, and I wouldn't have been able to manage a Krav class after that at all, ever, in any way, shape, or form. Whereas at least kickboxing. Well, it was all right being hit with gloves on, which sounds terrible, but actually I had to learn to kind of keep my guard up and obviously learn to work with a partner. And what it did give me was some sort of feeling of autonomy over my body again. I mean, Krav Maga was kind of the final piece in my puzzle, but kickboxing and the Muay Thai and the boxing all helped me just kind of know, like, this is my body and I own it and I can do some pretty cool stuff with it, actually. And I can use that strength. And the other thing it helped me to do was I had a really explosive temper, and training gave me a place that when I felt like I was going to lose it in kind of day-to-day life, I could put it in a box in my head and keep that and use it for training. I'd literally think, right, that's for training. And then you can just batter that punch bag or those pads, and it gives you that feeling, that it's the emotional, the mental, and the physical together, isn't it? It's all working as one. And that's a big focus of what I do with the women I work with now. My organisation is community interest company as well. We work with women after domestic violence, rape, and sexual violence, which is, because there's a lot of women, as Jess said, who are living out there terrified. But I quite often will use Muay Thai and a bit of pad work just to get them comfortable, knowing where their body is, knowing where stuff is, learning that actually, unbelievably, even women that have been very hurt by violence don't actually, quite often, they don't find it very easy to hit stuff. But I think that's quite a release for your body as well, just having that physical contact with something.
Brilliant, yeah, because that release and use of anger in an appropriate way is quite important, would you say?
And it's important to understand as well. Like when I worked at a referral unit, we had teenagers, some of them being from multiple schools. And some days they'd come in so angry because like the brother got arrested last night. They've spent all night out with whatever, and they come in and they're like, ah! And I'm like, well, am I going to try and take a register and sit down and do an hour of maths? Probably not. So what we used to do was for 20 minutes before register, before anything, is I just put the hand mitts on and I'd say, you can hit them if you want. And at start, they're like, I ain't hitting nothing. And then after a few days, it became their routine. And actually, when they've had that physicality in the morning, they're so much more open to learning as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I teach a lot of children as well, and a lot of them are on neurodivergent and ADHD, and just trying to manage that and support them at the same time. So that's fascinating. We may come back to you. Thank you. Nick, so you alluded earlier about
yes, my journey is quite unique because I have a profound hearing loss. So I'm basically been listening to you. I can hear you. I've got hearing aids right in my ears. Fantastic technology, digital hearing aids, Bluetooth connected. So I feel like the technology is really making me superhuman in some ways, but there are limitations because my profound hearing loss is quite severe. So when I was a child, there was a profound moment where my mom did not know what was wrong with me because she realized I wasn't able to talk properly or I wasn't paying attention. So then they found out with some tests that I had a problem with my hearing. So they were trying to get me to speak properly because that was a problem. I couldn't pronounce the words correctly and so on. So I went through a phase, special, like intensive re-education in a center where you have to learn to speak properly. And I was born in France, so all of that was French language. So I had to learn to pronounce the words, read the cards, and so on. And then there was a point my mom didn't think I was going to make it. So, and I began reading lips because they teach you to read lips. And I understood everything she said, and I was about 5 or 6. And it was just like my heart went pounding just right up here because the thing she said is, I don't know what I'm going to do with you. Perhaps I'm going to put you into a disabled school or instead of a normal school. And for me, it was a very defining moment in my life. It was either I'm going to go for the rest of my life in a disabled school and in disabled environment, and I felt like I would have failed, and I refused to believe I would go in that direction. So I worked hard to get through it, and I managed, and then grew. It became teenager, and discovered martial arts. And actually, as Stewart said, it's all about the mindset. And what I didn't realize, I wanted to study martial arts because there was something that was lacking in me: confidence, number one, and also because I felt maybe normal people could do better things than me, and I felt like I was slightly less than normal because of my hearing disability. But then long story short, I decided to take on Aikido, and very quickly I realized that what martial art was doing was just teaching me not only the physical exercise, but it was also helping me, like in my training, I wasn't wearing hearing aids because for safety and so on, you take them off. So I was using my eyesight, I was using the feeling of touching. So I was basically focusing on my other senses, and it enhanced my other senses. So I was really paying attention to what they were teaching, showing, and I was really good at picking up the movement, and if not better than normal people, because sometimes people were not looking, they were listening rather than looking. So I picked that up very quickly, and I realized I was doing the technique better than many people in the classroom. I was doing breakfasts, and all of this made me feel like they're normal people, that they can't do what I'm doing, but yet I'm doing better techniques. And it really pushed me to a point where I felt my confidence was boosted really, really high. And then you get older, and I discovered Aikido, and then quickly I studied hospitality. So I was, managed to get through to a normal school and so on, but with hearing aids, not the best, but I was like really determined. So from that point, I mentioned about my background with the experience with my mom is because there was that determination right from the start. I didn't want to be sort of feeling like I would fail. It couldn't fail. I have to make it, and I had to succeed. So if it was taking me longer, didn't matter. But I had my mind set to succeed, to really get through. So I traveled to England, and initially it was to learn the language, to learn English. And I remember I was seeing an audiologist person who was at the time, doing the hearing test and then giving me some new hearing aids, if they were new hearing aids and so on. And she was astounded to say, she's used to say, I can't believe that you are speaking so clearly in English. And obviously you speak French, but people who have that disability, this profound hearing loss, do sign language, but you don't. And she was shocked. And the point I'm saying is that the martial training has conditioned my mindset to be strong and to be resilient. So the other thing that Aikido has taught me is those physical movement that you do. For example, you take a break fall, you fall, but you get up. You fall, you get up. So it's a very meaningful in life because there will be obstacles, but you're not going to give up. You're going to go through a challenge, but you still get up. The only way is up. So it gave me that not only the physical strength to be able to get up and so on, but the mental strength not to give up. So it really reinforced me. And then I understood very clearly the study of martial arts is to build, it's like a gymnastic of a mind. And what we don't understand is we think we want to go and do martial arts to learn the technique and physical stuff, but there's a precondition of a mind. And then it really is a sort of teaching you to get the right mindset, not being overthinking, but just really go through the motion and let the body do the technique. So it is like body remembering the brain is not in here, because if it is in here, you'll forget the technique. So the brain is more in the skin, in your body. So suddenly you do the movement, it's not thinking, the movement is in you, it's the body doing. So it's fantastic because for me, that's gave me that massive boost. And I was able to do a lot of things. For example, take on a company, created a company, and I have about 99 members of staff working under me. So it's like a success in itself, somebody who has a profound hearing loss, who is wearing hearing aids, but is not being deterred because you can't hear, I ask again, or because my mindset is I'm confident enough, I believe in myself, I know what I can do, but it's because the martial art has given me that strength to do all those things. And also the other thing that I want to say, because I've heard what Jessica said is quite interesting with the Krav Maga, but I have in my experience, because part of it, because I'm quite a big guy, stocky guy, I was offered jobs to work as a door supervisor. So I done door work for 9 years and security. So I've had my fair share of fights in nightclubs, and I've learned a lot of things. And it's essentially because my main mission is to actually find an Aikido that is effective and strong, and that works. So then I experienced, and then I had other schools of Aikido done before, and that's why I moved on to Iwama Aikido. For me, that was quite powerful, and I was convinced this is it, this is for me. But what martial arts do teach you, this is one thing that's really important, because people said, oh yeah, but it's the same for karate, absolutely the same. I love the actual etiquette of bowing, respecting, because it starts from here. It starts from your mindset. It starts from your heart. You do it wholeheartedly with a good mind and with a good heart, and that builds sort of a good etiquette, and you become better as a person. You become better as a human being. For example, I had experiences in nightclubs when I had fights, and we had other doormen working with me. They had zero discipline in terms of, if there is a fight, there's a moment you have to stop. If you've actually neutralized or immobilized somebody to the ground, you don't continue to beat the person up.
Yeah,
You've got to have that discipline. So the discipline in martial art teaches you this, to refrain yourself from hurting the person. And that is really essentially important, because you
Nick,
could be saying, oh, I'm going to do everything to defend myself.
Yeah, Nick, I'm just going to stop you there, because you've got so many fantastic stories.
Sorry about that.
I know, it's good.
I just want to give it's really interesting stuff. Nick has also written a book. So what's your book title, Nick?
It's a book titled Aspire Aikido. Yeah.
There
you go. Stick it in the chat. I'm going to move over to Craig, who's also Craig Tetley, has also got a fascinating story to tell. So Craig, in terms of how your journey has impacted your life in this arena.
Oh man, I mean, it's been an incredible. I mean, it's the whole martial arts. Whatever martial arts I've done from the beginning has been basically a vehicle to develop the mind, character. It's led me to be essentially somebody I'd like to think I've developed a large amount of resilience, and what's been quite important has been I think the great thing with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is it allows you to spar heavy every single night, and not get hurt. Generally, it's quite a safe martial arts, but it is full on. It's really, really hard in the sense of it's grappling 100%. And the thing with that is every single night there comes problems. Somebody presents a set of challenges, and I have to overcome them challenges. There's challenges mentally, physically, and it becomes, I think, when you get to a high level in jiu-jitsu specifically, and any martial art, but jiu-jitsu, it essentially makes you a very high level problem solver. And it's one of the biggest gifts that I've been given, that when I have encountered problems in my own life, like some of the biggest challenges will come off from that, and the mat prepares you for them challenges. So, for instance, when I first moved down to Birmingham, I moved down there with these great ideas that I'm going to train with my instructor at the time, Braulio Estemery, was a multiple world champion, a legend in the sport, and I was going to go down, I was going to train full time. I was going to leave my family, go get a house and everything else, and we did all them things. And what came with it in the early weeks was a massive bout of depression. It crashed through me like a tsunami. I'd never gone away from home before. I'd kind of left my mum and my brother, who were quite. I was quite the man of the house from when I was like 15 years old, essentially, and I was kind of like leaving them too. And it sounds silly, but the condition of me moving down to Birmingham with my wife, she was like, "Well, if I'm going down to Birmingham, we've got to buy a dog." So we bought a little puppy, and I had this 8-week-old little puppy. I moved to a new city, and I just had an incredible bout of depression, and all I wanted to do was run back home. Luckily enough, to that point, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for a long period of time. I think I was a blue belt at that time, and I'd been on the doors for a long time, and I developed a certain amount of resilience and a certain amount of ability to solve problems. So I started to look at, well, what's actually happening here? You know, I'm going through these situations. I'm driving through Birmingham. I'm in tears. So I started just to solve the problems. I started to do breath work, meditation. I started to go home and see my family, so I could kind of edge into this new life that I was asking myself to do. I hadn't even got down to Braulio's at this time. I hadn't even walked into the gym. It were just all the challenges that were even presenting themselves in front of me to even start this journey of essentially becoming a black belt and opening up my own club. And I think that's what jiu-jitsu has given me, as the ability to problem solve some of these issues and the resilience to actually do something about them. I think everybody will agree, we live in this society where everybody wants a pill to fix something, you know, and essentially, like, you need self-sovereignty and resilience and the ability to control yourself. If for instance, I could have gone to a doctor and gone, right, okay, I'm feeling depressed, and he'd give me a pill, or I could get to the gym and exercise, which everything in me didn't want me to go to the gym. And can I control myself to override that feeling that just wants me to just stay in bed, get down to the gym, train, feel a little bit better, feel like I'm stepping forward, I'm going through it. And yeah, so like this is one of the things, like I speak to all my students about, is that I think, you know, so people will go through injuries, people will go through personal issues and all this type of thing, and I don't see it separate from martial arts. I see it a part of it. So when I've gone through injuries, that is jiu-jitsu. It's how do I get through that? How do I solve the problem? How do I get myself back to fitness? Do I have the resilience for self-sovereignty to be able to push through it? I went through a massive bout of insomnia when I came back from Birmingham. I went through an incredible bout of insomnia that brought on a second wave of depression. I'd only had 2 of these bouts in my life, and this was the second one. And the ability to problem solve that was really good. I actually became a breath coach and started to do a lot of breathing to settle down my nervous system, and found my way through it. So like I say, I always speak to my students and try and get them to understand that problems off the mat is part of the journey. And if you learn the lessons through the training, it'll prepare you to be able to handle them very real life problems.
That's an amazing story, Craig, and that's also in the book. And problem solving and crisis management is vitally important in all aspects of our life. One bit, Craig, I forgot to mention, but maybe I can mention. Where did you live initially, Craig? When you know what I'm getting at. When you went down to Birmingham.
Where's that? Sorry.
Where did you live?
In Birmingham.
Where did you live initially?
In Birmingham.
Was it in Birmingham, or was it in a vehicle?
Oh,
you were saying you lived in a car for a period of time.
I did, yeah, I did. It were a crazy time actually, because I went down to train full time and quickly realised I needed a full time job. So I got a job as a security guard, and I actually had the craziest. I did a full time job basically in 3 days. So I did a 24.5-hour shift on a Sunday, which was pretty much illegal. I slept in my car after night shift, got up, went training, finished training, got back in my car, slept, went to another night shift, slept again in my car. Yeah, so like three nights a week I slept in my car for about 5 years. Yeah.
Really?
And then got pneumonia through that. So I don't recommend anybody do it. And had a collapsed lung and and had some serious health issues. So it definitely wasn't healthy, but it was quite an experience waking up in.
Craig.
I used to actually just one story. Sorry, I know I'm rambling. I used to sleep in Tesco car park, and a couple of times I got a knock on the window by a security guard. Very angry security guard, and I'd almost felt like I'd woke up in his living room with that annoyed, and kind of ushered me out of the car park. So I went from Tesco's to Sainsbury's and kind of bounced back between supermarket car parks.
Yeah, there are other supermarkets as well.
There are, yeah.
So that's a fascinating story. Thank you for sharing, Craig, an amazing journey and how sort of jiu-jitsu has helped you. Yeah, they say that majority of depression can be overcome by exercise, and one of the exercises is martial arts. So I very much agree with that. I'm going to open up the floor to questions. So you can raise your hand either physically, or you can raise your hand at the bottom of your screen with an artificial hand.
I was quite fascinated by some of it.
Keith, go ahead.
It's quite some very interesting journeys. It's more on the people that do the I call the sort of the coaching, in terms of that when you've got an individual, what makes them a world champion or doesn't? If you sort of see what I mean, what is the mental tenacity? And that's something I've always been interested in, because I did some judo training with the great Neil Adams, and his girlfriend at the time was the swimmer, and I don't know, it was like 6 o'clock in the morning and 1,000 meters swimming. And I just wondered, what is that degree of separation? You know what I mean? And I'd be interested in listening what people do about that when they get someone to tell you, this person's going to be a champion or this one's not. You know what I mean? It's that sort of thing. Performance related, actually. I'm quite curious about that, because I've got some good boxing lads. I've got some good. I'm not certain they'll all make the grade, but there's probably one that probably will. So it's that, how can I get that, you know, always a little further. Always a little further. I mean, I had distraction now going legs like when I did, you know, but it's something that's interested me.
Who can help Keith with that question?
From what we've listened to everybody speaking, there's one thing very common that we've all got is that determination. There's something inside us that really makes us feel, you know, strong mentally because we've gone through something difficult and something that we want to use that negative experience and transforming it into a positive experience out of this, because we could have chosen to, you know, I don't know, go outside and take drugs or do other things or drink and so on. Your life could have been very different, but we chose like to do something. For me, the attraction of martial art was just so fascinating, and I personally believe that if everybody was practicing martial art and understand what it meant to be, it's not just about simply learning to defend yourself. Yes, of course, it's that. That's just to start off with. But very quickly, it's about building resilience, building strength, inner strength, because it's the power of the mind is very strong. Your body could be very tired, but if you already believe yourself you can't do it, it's game over. But if your mind is there saying you're still going to go through despite how tired you are, you'll go through it and you surpass yourself. You'll be feeling, wow, I never thought I could do it. And this is what I find really interesting. But the other thing is, I think through that determination from what we've gone through, each and one of us, is that there's something magical about the martial art. We could have gone for 10 years and say, you know what, I get bored. It's finished. I know all the techniques. I know everything. Actually, you realize it never stops because the technique is always got improvement factor. It can be better. It can still be better. And then how much better to the level you feel like, is that enough? And it's actually, it can be even better. It depends from you how much you want it, how hungry you want it. If you really want to go push yourself further, you can. There's no limit. That's the whole beauty of it. And that's why I think some of us are really doing this, because we've got that drive and then that motivation, because you get excited. You're still a beginner. After 36 years, for me, practicing Aikido, I'm a beginner. I mean, of course, I teach Aikido, but I meant in a good mindset, and I'm still I have this room to learn and to do more, which is why a few years ago I decided to do Shotokan karate. Some people who could have said, you know, you got this mindset, you're a teacher now, that's it. No, actually, it's very hard to go through the step of saying, but I'm going to take another martial arts and learn and start off again. But it's not just to take away what I've learned, it's to actually keep that mindset of a beginner's mindset. And it's really good because it keeps you humble, it makes you a better person, and there's so many positive.
Yeah,
I
Nick,
want to pick up on that point. You made a very good point. I didn't think about it then in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up in Brixton, but I was
Absolutely.
the only one that did not football, rugby, fight in pubs.
Exactly.
And to some degree, the people hung around were slightly nervous of me. This guy does judo, karate,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? And it was as easy of being, I didn't drink as well or smoke, which made me a complete outsider because
Completely.
in them days. But I had the determination to be that difference. I could have easily jumped in with the lads. Oh, right, yeah, I'll get on the drink, I'll get on the flags, and we'll go and do a bit. No, I kept one of them in called me the monk. I don't quite know where he got that from. But no, I think in a way one might not think of it when you're 16, 17. You know, it's later on in life where you think, hang on, that shaped me. That shaped me. You know, it's a very good point.
Exactly, shaping lives and that determination. I think many of you are nodding and putting in the comments. We're going to broaden this discussion a bit, and I know we're slightly going over, I think, with this bit more mileage in this discussion. I'm going to talk about breathing in just a moment, because that's the vital part of mindfulness. I'm going to maybe, Anna, you've been to Japan some while, is that correct?
Yes.
Japan?
Yes,
so tell us about what their perspective may be different than our perspective.
Yeah, well, it's interesting actually. A lot of the concepts that people have been talking about in the last few minutes, they all have their own proper sort of names in Japan. So, of course, now my mind's gone blank. But the concept of gaman and gambaru is to just keep trying, and gaman is sort of putting up with things through adversity, and Station or what is it? There's a whole thing about polishing the spirit.
Kaizen as well, is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Kaizen is just the constant iteration of small gains.
Continuous improvement.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love this. I love this word, Kaizen. I love it.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
It is a good one.
I mean, mindfulness has been talked about quite a lot, and breathing is something that some of us forget, how to breathe. I think Craig, you touched on it. I mean, to tell us a bit about that and how it helps mindfulness and helps us relax our bodies.
Yeah.
Craig?
So yeah. Yes. So I think the first time I kind of like got introduced to actually the concept of controlling your breath was when I worked as a doorman. Some of the good doormen that I worked with, and I worked with some excellent doormen, spoke about diaphragmatic breathing, which I first heard that term. I didn't have a clue what they were talking about, and just breathing from your belly to slow down the adrenal system, because obviously every single night on the doors, you know, I remember I worked as a full-time doorman, so I was working 5 to 6 nights a week, and the level, the adrenaline just didn't stop. It was even when I was working 5 nights, I might stop on a Sunday night, and then I'm back at work on, say, even Tuesday, Wednesday, and the adrenaline it'd just be constant. And to the point where, sorry, say again, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. So to the point where during sleep, I would be waking up and just headbutting the wall, punching the wall. I'd just be lashing out in my sleep because my body was so flooded with adrenaline, and I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to calm the adrenaline down and gain some kind of mindfulness, because, I tried to meditate a few times during, through heavy bouts of adrenaline, and it's just almost impossible. Your mind's racing, and you have to find a way of controlling and settling down the nervous system, getting into a parasympathetic state, and then you can find some kind of mindfulness. It's so important in martial arts as well. Anybody who's got high levels of adrenaline, whether you're competing or you're training for a fight or whatever else, it's I remember I numerous times where we'd have problems on the doors. I mean, some issues on the doors could be stretching for weeks. Like we had one issue on a Saturday night. No, I'm sorry, on a Sunday night, where we dealt with a well-known gangster that had known that had tortured and murdered people, and he'd issued a threat, and it's like this threat was like, I'm going to come back next weekend or the weekend after, sort of thing. And so we're living with that for 1 to 2 to 3 weeks, and I remember sort of like my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, would pass me my plate of food, and I'd be like, "Are you kidding? No way I want to touch that." The whole appetite just went. And
did you find when finishing your shift, you had to wait until people are completely out? I had to wait for about a good half an hour or 45 minutes and take a bus. And when I would take a bus, I would go to the top deck, and right at the end, next to the exit door, in case some guys have evicted or if I had trouble with just in the same bus, and I had my plan to get out of this bus quickly, getting out through the door. I didn't want to fight, but you're all the time on edge. You're alert, and until you go home, you think someone is following you and everything, and you go home, and until you close the door, all of a sudden you feel, it's all dropping.
Absolutely. And even then, the problem with that is, even when you get home, then you're in a sympathetic state. So how the hell do you sleep?
Completely.
And people have this in jiu-jitsu, for instance, when they come for the first class, they take the first class, and it'll routinely happen is where they'll come back the next day, they say, I loved the class, but I couldn't sleep. And this will happen for like quite a long time. And I'm like, yeah, right, okay. So now what you actually have to do is you've got to understand how to go into breath work, diaphragmatic breathing, longer exhales. There's so many different breath patterns that you can use to calm the nervous system, get yourself into a parasympathetic state, so you can actually get down to a baseline and deal with tough situations and tough events, especially as a doorman. It's absolutely crucial. It really.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, I do stress. I'm a stress management coach as well, and the breathing exercises and mindfulness is really important for anyone, especially people. And I went through personal burnout as well. Hence me writing the book.
Good point.
Now we're going to be rounding this session off in just a moment. Has anyone else got any other comments or questions before we come to a close?
Can I just say one thing, Rod?
Discussed a lot. Yes, Philippa.
I was just going to say to anyone that's thinking about doing martial arts, I think any good club that you go to will make you feel comfortable, no matter what your level of ability, where you're starting from. So it's not, it's important. It shouldn't. None of us should be teaching from a place of ego. Do you know?
Yes.
Like you want your students to eventually be in a place where you can look at them and think, oh wow, like they're not better than me, because it's not about. But do you know what I mean? So don't let it put you off. That's all.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's some fantastic instructors around the country, around the globe, and there's others that are so as good. So yes, choose wisely. And it's been a fabulous discussion. Hope you've enjoyed it. I've definitely enjoyed it, and I wanted to thank all the contributors. Les, thank you very much from your side, from the karate side. Jessica, as well from Krav Maga. Philippa, more Krav Maga from your side and some of the work you do in the community. Nick, thank you very much. And Craig and Claire, fantastic. Hopefully, I appreciate the audience as well. This will be recorded, and we'll be doing different topics in the field of martial arts or personal protection. And so keep an eye out, and I'll send you the link to the recording. Take care, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Thank you, Ash.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Thank you very much for organising it.
Yeah, thank you, Raj.
Yeah.